There are major updates tonight to the deadliest avalanche in the United States in nearly half a century. After 5 days of failed attempts, blizzard conditions, and controlled explosions to stabilize a mountain that would not stop moving, all 9 bodies have been recovered from Castle Peak. The 9th victim, missing and presumed dead since Tuesday, was found buried just meters from the others, invisible under snow that had been falling since the moment the mountain swallowed them. 3 of the dead are Blackbird Mountain Guides, now identified for the first time: Andrew Alessandratos, age 34, Nicole Chu, age 42, and Michael Henry, age 30. They were not amateurs. They were avalanche safety instructors at the top-rated avalanche education provider in the country. A criminal negligence investigation has been opened by the Nevada County Sheriff's Office, the first time attorneys across 3 states say they have seen a fatal guided avalanche trigger a criminal probe. Cal-OSHA has launched a parallel workplace safety investigation with 6 months to issue citations. The Tahoe National Forest has sealed off the entire Castle Peak area through mid-March. Tonight, the town of Truckee is holding a candlelight vigil at the Eagle statue downtown, not just for the 9 who died on the mountain, but for 3 skiers killed at North Star Resort the same week, for victims of a vehicle crash into pedestrians at the local Safeway, and for a shooting at the Crossroads Shopping Center. One small mountain town, 1 month, 14 dead. But here's the detail that tells the real story. The families of the 6 mothers killed on that mountain released a joint statement. They called their loved ones experienced, trained, and prepared. They said the trip was planned well in advance. They said the women were fully equipped with avalanche safety gear. And then they wrote 5 words that now sit at the center of both investigations. They trusted their professional guides. Larry Haywood, a snow and ski safety consultant who has worked in North Lake Tahoe for decades, told the New York Times that this simply should not have happened if you are following the protocols of ski mountaineering. He said the liability waivers backcountry companies use are legally flimsy and often do not hold up in court. And then he said what no official has been willing to say yet. This is going to be a really big lawsuit. Here's how the last 5 days unfolded. On Tuesday night, 6 survivors were pulled off Castle Peak after sheltering under a tarp for nearly 10 hours in a blizzard. They had already found 3 of their dead companions before rescuers arrived. The bodies of the other victims were marked with avalanche poles so they could be located again. But the mountain would not let anyone come back. On Wednesday, recovery operations were suspended. Heavy snow, gale force winds, and active avalanche danger made the site unreachable. On Thursday, the same. Sheriff Shannon Moon confirmed at a press conference that the operation had shifted from rescue to recovery. She said the persistent weak layer was still there and had reloaded with 3 more feet of snow. The hazard remained high. Then came Friday. The Nevada County Sheriff's Office sent California Highway Patrol helicopters over the avalanche site to assess snowpack stability. PG&E deployed its own helicopters to intentionally trigger unstable snow through controlled avalanche mitigation, clearing the way for recovery teams. That evening, California Highway Patrol search and rescue personnel located the 9th victim. Lieutenant Dennis Hack told reporters the body was found relatively close to the other 8, but had been impossible to see during whiteout conditions on the day of the slide. 5 bodies were recovered Friday night. Saturday morning, the operation resumed. National Guard Black Hawk helicopters and CHP aircraft hoisted the remaining 4 victims from the mountainside and transferred them by air to a staging area where snowcats carried them down. The last body was recovered at 10:58 in the morning. 42 volunteers assisted on the final day. Sheriff Moon stood at the press conference and said, "While we wish we could have saved them all, we are grateful that we can bring them home." And this is where the story shifts from the mountain to the courtroom. The Nevada County Sheriff's Office confirmed Friday that it has opened a standard criminal investigation to determine whether any actions surrounding the guided trip rise to the level of criminal negligence. Investigators are examining specific decisions, including why the trip proceeded after the Sierra Avalanche Center issued an avalanche watch on Sunday, and why the group departed the huts on Tuesday morning, 6.5 hours after the center upgraded that watch to a full avalanche warning with language that was not ambiguous. High avalanche danger. Natural avalanches likely. Human-triggered avalanches large enough to bury people very likely. Travel in avalanche terrain not recommended. But here is the problem that is not making headlines. Attorney Andrew McDevitt, who handles skiing accident cases in California, told the Associated Press that he and other attorneys in California, Colorado, and Utah had not previously heard of a fatal avalanche during a guided trip that sparked a criminal investigation. There is no precedent for this. The legal infrastructure does not exist. There is no federal licensing requirement for backcountry ski guides in the United States. The Forest Service requires special use permits on public land, but the Frog Lake huts sit on private property. Larry Haywood described the oversight framework in blunt terms. The mountain is mostly federal land. The huts are private. The regulatory space in between is a vacuum. Castle Peak rises to 9,110 feet in the Donner Summit region of the Sierra Nevada, 8 miles northwest of Truckee, directly adjacent to Interstate 80 between Sacramento and Reno. The Frog Lake huts sit in a basin surrounded by steep north-facing slopes, exactly the terrain where persistent weak layers are most dangerous. The Truckee Donner Land Trust, which operates the huts, describes the terrain on its website as carrying avalanche hazard on the standard return route. The terrain had been closed to the public for nearly a century before the trust purchased it and opened the huts in 2020. Each participant on this trip paid $1,165. And then there is what the Sierra Avalanche Center confirmed in its official incident report. The avalanche was classified between D2 and D3 on the destructive force scale. Sheriff Moon described it at the Saturday press conference. A D2 would take down a person. A D3 would take down a house. The avalanche was right between those, and it was described as a football field in length. 15 people were in its path on a slope with a 60-degree incline, rated the second highest on the avalanche risk scale. A longer, flatter route existed with the second lowest threat rating. The group chose the steeper one. Now absorb the scale of what has happened to this community. The 9 dead at Castle Peak were not Truckee's only losses in February. At North Star California Resort, 3 skiers died in separate incidents in the same month. Nicholas Kenworthy, 26, died on February 6th. Stuart McLaughlin, 53, died on February 15th. Colin Kang, 21, a San Jose State graduate and North Star employee, was found dead on the Advanced Sugar Pine Glade Trail on February 19th. 2 more skiers died at Heavenly Resort on February 20th. 14 skiing and avalanche deaths in one region in 1 month. Mayor Anna Klovstad said something that captures the weight of it. You can see Castle Peak from most of Truckee. That is also where many of us play. The California Occupational Safety and Health Administration has until mid-August to complete its workplace safety investigation and issue citations. In December, the same agency issued $221,000 in fines to a fireworks company after an explosion killed 7 people in Esparto, California. That investigation took 5 months. The criminal negligence probe has no disclosed timeline. Blackbird Mountain Guides suspended all field operations through today, February 22nd, and said it may extend the pause into the coming weeks. The company's founder, Zeb Blaze, said there is still a lot we are learning about what happened, and that it is too soon to draw conclusions. David Reichel, the executive director of the Sierra Avalanche Center, warned that any proposal to limit backcountry access when avalanche danger is high would face quite a bit of pushback. Kurt Summers, who spent 15 years on the Orange County Mountain Rescue Team, put it more directly. There is no gate big enough or net large enough. He said prevention through education is the best course of action. And yet the company at the center of this investigation was the country's top-rated avalanche education provider. 3 of its 4 instructors are dead. And across the Atlantic, the same persistent weak layer pattern has now killed at least 100 people across the European Alps this winter, equal to the full annual average, with 2.5 months of the season still remaining. An American was among 5 people killed in a single avalanche in St. Anton, Austria on Friday. The United States State Department issued a formal travel warning that same day about significantly increased avalanche danger in Switzerland, Austria, and France. The fracture is not regional, it is hemispheric. Will the criminal investigation lead to charges against a company that publicly documented the very weak layer that killed its own guides? Will liability waivers protect an industry that has no federal licensing, no standardized oversight, and no mechanism to close terrain that its own forecasters have declared too dangerous to enter? And if 14 people can die in one mountain community in 1 month, and the regulatory response is that there is no gate big enough, who decides when the mountain is too dangerous for the people who trust the professionals to tell them? Tonight in Truckee at 6 o'clock, candles will be lit at the eagle statue in the center of town. The families have asked for privacy. They are focused on their children. The mountain has given back what it took. But the questions it left behind are only beginning to climb.